Welcome to the latest episode of the Run Your Mind podcast. I'm Chris Hatfield, your host, and on today's episode, we are going to be discussing self-talk. I think we can be so conscious of the conversation we have with others or what others say to us, but less so of the conversation we have with ourselves. And whether it's running or everyday life, the conversation we do have will set the tone for our performance, for our mindset going into a run, a training block, our everyday life outside of running as well. And if we're not conscious maybe of the stories we're telling ourselves or why we default to maybe the most worst case scenarios, this is what can set us up to fail before we've even started that run or that race. So on today's episode, I'm joined by a variety of guests that you'll meet shortly that are going to discuss exactly why this might happen. What are some of the reasons behind it? What are some stories where their self-talk has showed up? And most importantly as well, some tangible and practical ways for you to start becoming more conscious of how you reframe your self-talk to serve, not sabotage you. Let's get into it. Okay, so everyone, thank you so much for joining me today. Before we kick off, it'd be great to go around and just for the purpose of people, and there might be many tuning in that don't know who you are, to introduce yourself. So Jess, do you mind if we start with you?
Yeah, no pressure. I'm Jess. I am a presenter on the running channel. I started running probably, a long time ago, but just think I'm probably someone that says yes way too often and has ended up doing kind of an Ironman, ultra marathons. And last year I took on 42 marathons.
Chris Bodman. I'm a performance psychologist. So I've worked in elite sport for, this makes me sound old, over 20 years. I started off as a strength conditioning coach and then transitioned into psychology about 12, 13 years ago. I work predominantly in team sports. At the moment, I'm actually working with the England women's cricket team. So we're in the middle of a T20 World Cup campaign, which is exciting. And then founder of my own consultancy, Elementary Performance.
I'm Jonty Brown. I'm co-founder of Runlimited and type 1 diabetic ultra runner that likes to do stupid things for fun. Good mates with him.
Great. Well, the topic today is self-talk, and as I mentioned in the intro, I think we can be so conscious of maybe like what we say to others or what others say to us, but less so maybe about the conversation we have with ourselves. And I think a lot of people aren't as conscious of maybe that conversation. First question, and feel free to jump in like when you have an answer for this, but if you were to describe self-talk, if it were a friend in your life, how would you describe that relationship with it in one or two words?
I was gonna say coach, but like an overprotective coach.
Nice.
Overprotective coach, that's 2 words for you. There you go.
Yeah, okay. Overprotective coach.
I think it's kind of trying to get you through your life. I guess the voice inside my head is like trying to get you through your life, but it's just kind of trying to protect me too much along the way. So it's kind of almost trying to hold me back at times when actually it might be for the best, but sometimes it's limiting you because it's, you could be out on a run and you'd be like, oh, you haven't trained hard enough for this, you haven't done whatever, because your natural instinct is to want to protect yourself, but actually sometimes you don't necessarily need those protective measures that it's putting in place.
I mean, similar to that, I think, I guess my relationship with that person has evolved over time, and that's changed over time. So it's certainly been a critic at times. But like I say, I think it's more of a challenging critic or a constructive critic now in terms of being a bit more familiar with what it is, being able to be open to being curious about it. And like I said, I think it's there to protect as opposed to, from a negative perspective. So I think that my relationship with it has changed, has evolved as I've kind of understood it a bit more.
Yeah, it's hard to summarize, really, isn't it? Yeah. Because you think about self-talking as in a negative way, but then it's also as in a positive way at the same time. So how do you summarize that into one word? Maybe it's like a parent, or I think you say, right, it's a coach, right? You want to be pushed and motivated, but they're also going to be there to protect you. It's probably a good book.
Yeah, parents are quite nice actually, because normally parents are quite nice, but they are trying to look after you.
Yeah,
that's nice. You've got a little parent in your head.
Yeah, I think I'm fascinated by this topic because I think when you look at, it's one of the things when you look at not just elite runners, but you might look at your running influencers now or people doing all these challenges and think, oh, they must have it all together. They must be super confident. They must have this really positive self-talk. And then you get to speak to people like that, and they're like, no, I struggle with it as well. What's your experience of that in terms of people you've spoken to around this topic, and the maybe like myth that people have it all together, or that people are thinking positively all the time and that's why they're performing at their best?
I think if you could name one ultra runner that is sane or doesn't have an issue, yeah, you've hit jackpot, because you ain't going to find one of them. That's why we do these things, you know. That's
Doesn't have an issue. Love that.
Yeah.
Oh no, I think I'm so guilty of that. I literally always think, even in my training, I think, oh my God, that person must be so confident because they just go out and do it and they don't have to think twice. And then there's me literally crying my whole way down to the race start line. But I think it's so different, and like even through my own running journey, I can see how I've like my self-talk has like evolved. And as you were saying, like, you know, it changes over time, and like an inexperienced runner, for example, you might be like thinking, I'm not sure I can complete that distance, for example, whereas like a more experienced runner maybe isn't thinking they can't complete the distance because they might have done it a few times, but they might be almost like not believing that they can achieve the time they've wanted, or that they've set on themselves, or someone else has put that expectation on them. So I think it's kind of like, it's different, isn't it, that we probably just all talk to ourselves different over time, and not necessarily that doesn't then still kick in. It'll just be that because you're more experienced, you know how to challenge it. And then, you know, you might be thinking, oh, I'm not sure I'm going to get that time. But you think, okay, well, instead I'm going to think, let me get to that next benchmark, or let me try and think about something else for a little bit of time. And you almost kind of like try and calm that voice inside your head rather than just automatically believing it.
I mean, from my perspective, it starts with a self-awareness. So the more aware you are, then the more you can impact or influence these things. And so I think that correlates sometimes to, like say, people that have had multiple experiences, and potentially that awareness is expanded, right? So they're able to, it's more familiar, in which case they can navigate that space a little bit more. Whereas if it's your first exposure to something or first experience, then again, all those unknowns can take you wherever you want to go, I guess. So I think that, but I think you're right. I think the myth, again, just being privileged to work with high performers, then the myth is that these are superhuman people, and they're not at all. They're ordinary people that have just established ways and systems, and actually not always. Some of them is more by luck than judgment. They just found their way, but not necessarily in a way to be able to explain it. Others have obviously invested a lot into that development, I guess, to get better. But yeah, it's something that happens to everybody, and that, like I say, the more aware we can be of that and how we can influence it, then probably that's where the success will come.
Yeah.
When you work with those, athletes, do they all have like similar traits, do you find?
I think there are common like personal qualities within high performers. Yeah. So optimism being one, probably. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, how that presents is going to be different across everybody. But I think as a common trait, if you like, a common behaviour, then they will very much look for the opportunity.
Okay.
And that's the differentiator. Yeah.
Nice.
I thought you were going to say, as Jonty said earlier, they're not sane.
Yeah, they're all a bit tapped.
that voice inside your head that's trying to protect you, they're like, nah, I don't need that.
Yeah.
I think there's got to be difference, though, right? Like you say, there's got to be something a little different for them to be able to do what they do.
If you go back to the speed projects that you did, if you took yourself back there, like what kind of self-talk was that like on the way through? Was it a constant similar theme, or did that kind of evolve as the challenge went on?
100 hours is a long time to be in your own brain. So it changes completely. So you can be like, you can go out there and, you know, you go, okay, yeah, I can do this. Like, oh yeah, it's going to be sick. And then you're going to have times where you go, no, mate, like this is cooked. Like you have to go home. It's time for bed. And then, but you've always got that. I ran on Sunday actually, and I was running in the first like 40, 50K. I was just running and I was just going, oh, cool. So I get to the end and then like, how long is it going to take me? Just constantly thinking about the finish. And then all of a sudden it clicked and I was like, what am I doing? And this is probably one of the first times it's happened. And I've been running for a long time. And I was just like, no, just enjoy now. And like, you can say enjoy now. And, but the actual feeling happened, and I was like, oh, I am going to enjoy it. I don't want to finish. And it changed the whole perspective. And, you can tell yourself how to think different, but it won't necessarily do it. But I don't know what happened, but this weekend, it was the first time it actually happened where I'm going to just enjoy now. And it was the first time, and it felt great. So I don't know if you can manipulate your brain to do that.
I think, again, like a useful kind of framework around that. So if we start with the state, so what state you're in,
Mm-hmm.
then that state is probably then going to determine the story that you tell yourself. Yeah. The story that you tell yourself is then probably going to determine what strategy you take. So think of it like that, those three S's. Yeah. So if my state is informing the narrative, and then that narrative is informing what I do, if what I'm doing isn't what I want to be doing, then I need to kind of reverse engineer that.
Mm-hmm.
So how do I change my story? Well, I probably need to adopt a different state from the first place. So kind of what you're explaining there in terms of like, put myself, again, whether intentionally or not, but put myself in a state to tell myself something to then allow me to action what it is.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think often that the start place is like, where am I actually at? What state am I in? And then how's that informing what, again, either the inner narrative or whatever, in terms of what that looks like, which is probably going to then determine what action I take off the back of it. Yeah.
Because you've been in races and runs, right, where you get to a point and you go, this is horrible, but I know that if I just tell myself I'll be fine, it'll be okay. And then you're just constantly trying to tell your brain that you're all right. Yeah. But sometimes it's so hard when you're like in a bad place. But then you might get over that little bump and then you're in a good place again. And it is a huge mental state, because if you're feeling a bit worse for wear and you're running down and you're feeling crap, like, you will naturally just go, okay, that's it. And you kind of slowly deteriorate, and you're telling that inner talk comes in and it's going, no.
And it escalates pretty quick, like you say. Like it just takes one thing to then, and then you're in a bit of a cycle.
Can you take yourself back, Jess, to like one of the many marathons or ultras you've done, and sort of what the self-talk was like there, or like a moment like, have you had what like Jonty described there, where your self-talk's been louder, and a way in which you've caught it or recognised what it's trying to do, when you said earlier on about like an overprotective coach?
Yeah, it's actually like become so much more apparent to me recently, which has been almost like a revelation of how running is such a mental game. And I am my own worst enemy a lot of the time, where I'm really trying to train myself to kind of have a bit more confidence or change my mindset, because I often think that I probably rely on other people a bit more, because I've almost made myself have these beliefs that things aren't possible. And I'm very much like I'll just say yes and I'll just go for it. And then I have to just deal with the consequences as I go along. But I've been lucky enough to like run with other people. So, for example, I was trying to get a certain time in a marathon a couple of years ago, and I had someone running with me to film. And he's amazing. He does loads of challenges for people. Chris Taylor, if you've he's organised lots of challenges. And there was a point where I was so much earlier on in the marathon than I thought I'd be, when I got this kind of feeling of I'm not going to do this. And I just said to him, I know I've just thought I can't do it. And you need sometimes someone to just be like, well, challenge that and actually just relax, take a deep breath, think of something different, change your mindset. And it is amazing how I managed to like turn my mind around from that and then go ahead and achieve that time. Whereas in other circumstances, I might have just been like, right, well, that time's gone. I've not done it. Whereas like I was still on track, and I'd already told myself I couldn't do it, even though I was still on track. And so rather than then having someone else there to be able to tell me that, I'm working on it, being able to bring in my own steps to be like, you can do it. And like last year, I was running 42 marathons in memory of my brother, who would have been 42. And I think because I was running and had that like, like purpose, rather than thinking that I can't do it, I had just told myself from the start, this is crazy. Like, I don't know if I can do it, but I know that I will. So like, it's a weird thing to be thinking, well, I don't know how I'm going to get to the end, but I know because I've decided I'm going to do it, that I'll literally crawl to the finish line. And there was a point back in May, which is early on in the year, where I had so many marathons to go. I was like injured, and I was like, got to take a whole month off running. And I thought, right, I'm so behind on schedule. But I just had told myself, well, you're going to have to crawl to the finish line and I'm going to have to do it. So you kind of then challenge those beliefs. And yeah, I think that's like something that is becoming more apparent, is that beliefs are just beliefs are things that you can change, which is wild.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a good example as well, I think, of like that self-fulfilling prophecy, isn't it? Sometimes if you're telling yourself something, then we hate being proved wrong by other people, let alone ourselves. So if you're telling yourself something, that confirmation bias kicks in, and you start noticing those niggles a bit more, don't you? And you start thinking, oh, actually that's going to be something, and then your body tenses up, or you don't do something, you're like, oh, I told myself I couldn't do it. It's like, was that always a foregone conclusion, or was it because of all that narrative in your head? Chris, for you, what is it, the reason? We've obviously, a lot of this is we tend to go towards negative self-talk. What's the reason behind like why that's our default setting? Why is our brain sort of set up in that way?
I mean, the evolution, like from an evolution perspective, then our brain was there to protect us, right? To protect us from threat. And so because of that, then that that bias towards negativity is essentially hardwired within all of us. I think the difference now is that the threat back then was, again, the stereotypical saber-toothed tiger, and if I'm met with that, then what do I do? So the significance of the threat was far greater than, again, what happens if I don't complete this run on a Sunday morning. So I'm comparing threat to threat, which isn't comparable anymore, right? So the brain is there, again, it's there to protect. And so I think accepting of that is the first bit, right? So again, if we're understanding of that, then okay, then what do I want to do with that? And when do I need for it to protect me and serve that purpose? And when do I need to reorientate or recalibrate what my interpretation of threat is in that moment? So as opposed to just being binary and thinking like any discomfort or any challenge that I'm under is tick or cross, it's just like, okay, there's far more scope to play with here. So yeah, so it goes back to the bit again from that awareness. If we're understanding as to the function of the brain, then how do I work with it and how do I adapt to situations, as opposed to just being like, well, that's just me, yeah, and it being a fixed trait.
How did you and feel free if you jump in, some of the challenges you've done, how have you tried to normalize that, or to avoid it becoming this thing that does steer you off course? So when you were saying, Jess, about that race you were doing 2 years ago, what did you notice when you did actually start, when you heard that external self-talk initial or someone having a conversation with you? What have you now noticed in terms of your performance when you're showing up or training, now that you're more conscious of that?
Well, it's definitely still a work in progress. I can't say that I go out and just think all the time like, well, I can do it, so I'm just going to do it. Even on those hard training sessions or even easy runs where you just think, it's a hard balance, isn't it, of finding where you actually do need to protect yourself. And, if you feel a niggle and think, oh, my mind's just being overreactive, you don't want to just ignore that. So you do want to stop. But I think for me, I've probably got tactics in mind where, there's like, I guess, age-old ones where even just smiling when you don't feel like smiling in a race, you can just, sometimes that helps you turn it around and you can be like, oh, you know what, I'm thinking positive thoughts. Or I am probably the worst person for, and my family take the mick out of me for this all the time, where I almost draw on experiences around me to then get me to the finish. So it's not necessarily like me thinking all happy thoughts. So I find it so intriguing listening to people of oh, how do you get yourself to the finish line when you don't want to? And for me, it's thinking about everyone that's believed in me, or people who couldn't be there on the day, or those hard training sessions where I didn't think I could do it and I got out there and did it anyway. And it's almost like getting a bit emotional almost to then get yourself to the finish line. So I feel like everyone's got their own tactics, and mine might not necessarily work for someone else. I listen to the most emotional music when I'm feeling like I want to get to the finish line. And other people are like, how could you do that? I listen to punk rock or whatever it is. So it's almost like, I don't want to say tricking, but almost tricking my brain. And the more I've started, going to to therapy for, I guess, all aspects of life, not just running. But it's funny how you can then take it into your running life as well. And for me, like I was talking about those beliefs, in my mind, like I've had lots of like negative experiences in the past, which have led to me thinking that 1% chance of something happening is likely to happen. Whereas other people around me might think, oh, there's only 1% chance that's not going to happen. And for me, I've almost like, because of my experiences, I've kind of told myself, my brain, well, that could happen. So it's now, I'm working on kind of changing that belief and thinking 1% chance isn't very likely. So if there's 1% chance that I'm going to fall over on this race and fall down that bank or whatever it is on this ultra marathon, it's not very likely to happen. And it's like things like that where that's, you know, like a random one, but it's things like that where you almost have to just like say to your brain, like, is that actually, you know, like it's not always telling you the truth. That was completely random, but ramble.
Well,
but
I think it links to kind of that state piece you were talking, is that you've engineered a state there that you were talking about before with the story. Is it might be an emotive state, but it's still some form of state.
I think again, I think you touched on a really important point, Jess. Is it that difference between is it fact or fear? Yeah. So is what I'm telling myself, or is that narrative actually true, or is it what I'm imagining to happen, or what could happen? Yeah, which is evoking a sense of fear. So, like I say, if we're in that state, then our brain is going to be heightened by it and probably do something to try and protect us, right? Whereas if we can counter that and say, actually, what do I know to be true in this moment? Then I've got more chance of being able to navigate that space a little bit more. So I think, as I say, all the time we're kind of battling with that, right? And then when the challenge is greater, or that threat becomes more obvious, then potentially I go over into that fear space. Again, if I can just take a breath and take a pause in that moment and say, and actually, what is happening here? Not what am I imagining to happen, or what am I thinking has already happened, but what is actually happening right now. The other bit with that, I think, is, well, we're often in that space. We go into that space when we're either spending more time in the past or the future than we are actually in the present. So when we're thinking as to what has been, or when we're predicting as to what is to come. Yeah. Whereas if, again, it sounds a bit cliche, but if we can stay as present as possible, then literally the next thing I'm thinking about is the next step in front of me, right? In which case, like, where is fear, or where is pressure? Because you could argue it doesn't exist in that space, because why would it?
Yeah, I guess. And then
That's
you're on your run and you're thinking, like, I want to be here.
Right.
I want to do this.
Right.
And that's all you need to worry about.
And the next thing I need to think about literally is the next step that I take, right? And if I can get into that space, then that just allows to potentially just certainly dilute, if not get rid of those thoughts, feelings, emotions that, like I say, geez, what happened there, or what is going to happen.
Yeah.
It's a really hard thing, though, because I think, like, if you think about your own mind, you think you know yourself the best out of everyone. So you almost like have told yourself that you know best, and actually your brain has probably got you know, two sides to it, or whatever it is, that doesn't necessarily know best. So it's not always telling you the truth.
And I think that's the whole crux of this, right? Like, we know ourselves better than anybody, which is why we talk to ourselves the way we do, which is why we probably wouldn't talk to somebody else in the same manner, right? Because we don't. So that, the more I know of myself, again, if I want to, then I can sabotage as much as I want, because nobody else knows me as well as I do.
Yeah, it's kind of annoying, though, that the negative self-talk ends up louder than the positive, isn't it? Because it's like that sense of urgency, like, because you're thinking you might be in danger. It's like that just overlaps the positive self-talk, and you're like, it's such a skill to be able to master that, of being like, I'm going to drown out that negative thought with a positive one.
I try and look for my experience. Because I think when I've worked with people, sometimes when you say positive self-talk, it can go into like toxic positivity of just telling yourself it's definitely going to be fine, it's all right. I kind of like try and imagine it a bit like neutral thinking. So like trying to consider what could go wrong, but also going, well, you know, as to your point, here's where you are now, and don't try and say anything that maybe isn't in your control, but just focus on in the moment of going, you know, I might not know how I finish this, but I do know how I am now. I do know I can keep going, or, you know, you're all right, for example. It's a bit like what you were saying earlier on as well. It's just like normalizing that feeling, I think, for me is the biggest thing. I was speaking to someone the other day and they said, this is what it's meant to feel like. Like they will tell themselves this at variety stages of their ultras and runs or training blocks. It's like, this is what it's meant to be. Because I think when you overanalyze something, a feeling or a thought, it can feel like an intruder, and then you think it doesn't belong. And that's what can probably amplify that feeling even more, to go, oh God, I shouldn't be thinking this, or oh, this must be that, it must mean that I'm doing something wrong, which can create that self-fulfilling prophecy as well.
And you guys have got those experiences to be able to draw on to like I say, to really organize that. Whereas people that are going into that first time or whatever haven't got that, right? So again, they don't know what normal is, like you say. So I think if you use those experiences to your advantage, then it helps to inform your decisions. Yeah. Whereas a lot of people will just go and do these ultras or runs or whatever, and then not kind of reflect after it or not think about it, and just go into the next thing and just, well, why was that the same, or why was that different? So again, I think experiences or exposures, like we mentioned already, are critical to inform going forwards if you actually do like take something from it.
Yeah.
As opposed to just cracking on through. Yeah.
Do you think, and personal opinion here, do you think running amplifies your inner critic or reveals it? Because I think, you know, you've mentioned, Jess, already about it being not just in running in terms of self-talk, but do you think personally it reveals it and actually it is existing in other parts of your life, it just comes out more, or amplifies it, and actually you would say your inner critic isn't as loud outside of running?
I think it helps manage it.
Yeah.
Because you notice it more and you have time to think about it on your run, especially when you're doing longer ones. But you're putting yourself into a challenging situation anyway, so it will come forth. And I think the longer you are with it as well, that's why I love ultras, because it can put you into places that you never believed possible in your brain and physically. But with that, and that self-talk as well, you see it in different levels. Like you see it in the positives, you see it in the negatives. And I think running will bring it out, obviously, because it's tough. But then maybe that will also then, I don't have the answer for this actually.
I love how I can see your brain working, being like, which, yeah, that means both.
Yeah, it is both. Like it comes out in life anyway, but then maybe because you've been put in those situations in running, it helps you then navigate it in the real world as well. The real world, like running's not real, but
Yeah,
in the real,
we're in our own
you know
little
what I
world
mean?
when we're running.
Yeah.
What about you, Jess? You say amplifies it or reveals it,
Oh, it's so hard.
or both?
I think it reveals it. I don't know. No, that's really hard. I feel like it's just that in your kind of like day-to-day life, you're not necessarily putting yourself in the same situations as you are when you're running. You're not necessarily like going into some important meeting every day where you're like, can I do this? Oh, no, I don't know if I can do this. That you might be a bit more comfortable in other parts of your life because you might challenge yourself more in your running. So it probably depends. I love how you're nodding because I feel like now I'm telling the right answer because you're the expert on this. So I'm like, is this the right answer?
I don't think there is a right answer.
Okay.
I think that's the bit. I think, like you say, I think is it one or the other or equal? And again, I think it's probably contextual, situational. For me, that's a far healthier way to think about it than it needs to be exclusively one or the other. I think the reality is, like you say, you're going to cycle through all sorts. You could go out with best intentions and really have a handle on it, and then for whatever reason that thought comes in your head, and just like, where does that come from? Right? We don't control the thought. That's the bit around this, right? We don't control our thoughts, but we can control our response to the thought. Yeah. So nobody's exempt from that. So you can't go in and say, right, I'm not going to have any kind of negative self-talk this time, because if my brain wants to, it's just going to introduce it when it wants to, right? So, yeah, I think at times it will do both, and at times it might sway towards one more than the other. But I think, and again, it's not a right answer, I think the reality is on a continuum, and it can, like I said, I think dependent on the situation will be dependent on what happens there.
I would also say that it may be almost like running it to contradict that. I feel like running has helped with my negative self-talk a lot as well, because if I think about, so I used to be a nurse, a children's nurse, when I qualified years ago. I'm not that old, actually. I made myself sound really old. But anyway, and I feel like it was around then that I started running more and more. And I feel like through running, I've almost got a bit more confident, which I think relates to the self-talk. And because I'd challenged myself in other aspects of life, because I challenged myself in my running, it almost helped me with other aspects of my life. And if I think about going into almost my job interview that I'm doing now, I would never have had the confidence to go and do that. But because I'd then gone and run an ultramarathon, or I think I'd done an Ironman, I'd done these things that I would have, if you'd asked me like even a year before, I'd have said, there's no chance you'll find me doing that. So then I almost from that was able to be like, well, you know what, I'm going to go to that interview. If it doesn't work out, at least I've given it my best shot. And that's what I do a lot in running as well. So I think it goes both ways, where it might maybe make your self-talk become more apparent or amplified or whatever it is, but it also can help you challenge that thought a bit more because you've practiced that in your running, and you maybe then will practice that elsewhere.
With you, Jonty, how does it work from you? Do you feel like when you're running, you draw upon life experiences where you've been able to deal with things and go, right, if I can deal with that, I can deal with running? Or is it the other way, or because I've dealt with that running challenge, I can deal with life? Or do they equally balance in your mind?
Running, I've definitely put myself into worse holes in running than I have in life. But you pull it from all angles, right? You pull things that you've learnt in running, things that you've learnt in life, and you use them parallel in both aspects.
Yeah.
But I think just quickly going back to what you were saying then about that confidence thing, I think that's really nice. And I think, yes, it's giving you that confidence, but also like leading run clubs, like standing in front of, hundreds of people sometime and having that confidence just to get up and do it. Like stuff like that. And then also going to a run club and meeting new people. There's like such confident builders within running, not just running itself and getting through hard times, but actually the things in life where you don't expect, like go meet new people, go meet new friends, talk to people, and then actually having that confidence to then talk about other things that, we have really deep conversations on our long runs on Saturdays, but like little things like that, like running can bring so much more to life, in my opinion, than just the running itself. Sorry, curveball.
It's funny how we think of running as a completely different life, don't we? It's almost like we have our normal life and then we go on a run and it's like, oh, that's my other life. And you kind of almost like, oh, it's helped me in my life. But it is funny how, because I do that as well. And I think so many people I speak to do that, where it's like running is this, alternative universe where you almost like breathe a piece of fresh air, and like, it's like, it helps you in so many ways, and it's interesting how it like challenges so many aspects of our life. And I just think it's so funny how we kind of go out into this other world of ours and come back a new person.
I think because it is, like you said earlier on, I think it reveals a lot, but also it's the very few times these days we're away from our phones. It's such a present activity, isn't it, that there is you and your thoughts, and obviously music sometimes, or other people. But I think when you go into that kind of flow state, or when you're running, it just sort of almost strips everything back. Whereas I think in life we're so busy, everything, we don't really have time to reflect on it. We're almost like in this movie the whole time. We don't really have time to watch it back. I think running's that kind of piece, isn't it? That's why it can almost be this, you sort of step out on the side and you can sort of watch yourself back, almost like the Truman Show, and then sort of reflect on things, because there'll be times where I'm like so busy in my head, I'm like, I just need to go for a run. I just need to like get all this stuff out in my head and come back, or for creativity, or for like release. I think running can be used for so many different things. I think you can go too far one way sometimes and maybe use it too much of an escape, which is probably why it can feel like a separate thing. But I suppose when it comes to each of you, when we're talking about self-talk, and you mentioned beliefs, Jess, and I'll include you in this, Chris, as well. Like, what is one belief do you think that either running has helped with, or just over the years that you've challenged and changed about yourself, that maybe you used to believe, but now you're like, oh, actually, I don't believe it as much, or I have a completely different perspective on it, whether that's in terms of your running ability or just you as a person?
That's tough.
I was waiting for you to go first.
I'm trying to go which one to go for, but I think it keeps coming back to confidence. Like, it's definitely given me more confidence as a person, but also reflection. And I think running, it opens your mind a little bit more of taking in and learning exactly what's going on, because you have that time. Like when you're running out, it's you're getting in that rhythmic state, and then you're actually having time to process everything. It helped with my anxiety and mental health massively. But yeah, I think confidence in that's running for me has given me confidence and ways to manage inner talk. And
can I just pick up on a nuance there a little bit? It's great that you said confidence, because confidence suggests it's a dynamic thing, right? Whereas oftentimes we'll say confident, which again sounds pretty definite. If I'm not confident, then what am I?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Whereas confidence is how it should be understood on a continuum.
Mm-hmm.
What you've both explained, what you've all explained, is that running is a significant source of confidence for you. And so, like you say, what can I take from that? Like, why does that provide that? And what aspects of it can I take into other parts of my life that I may be a little, or my confidence may be a little less? Yeah. And like you say, what's allowed you to do, Jonty, is stand up in front of a couple of hundred people when you're leading that run club, right? But what is it about that then allows you to put yourself in those situations and be able to display a level of confidence that is required for that moment, as opposed to putting the limiter or putting the belief on the fact that I'm not very good at standing up and talking in front of people. Yeah. So if I believe that, then again, it just becomes more and more robust, and then I excuse myself from any situation where I'm going to be exposed to that. Whereas what you've done is to say, right, I get a sense of confidence in this environment, and part of that is to address groups of people, in which case I'm able to do it. You've challenged the limiting belief, and you've allowed that ceiling to increase. So I think, just again, going off topic from self-talk, but another psychological construct, obviously, and significant one, is this notion of confidence. And I just love how you've talked about it in a way that I think is absolutely the right way to think about it, is being shifting and moving dependent on the situation, as opposed to it being I either am or I'm not.
Well, you're never not always confident, yeah. You try your best.
It's funny how I think, like, I don't know about you guys, but I think too much confidence is always kind of a negative thing. And I've always thought I've seemed like arrogant if I'm too confident. So I think you almost sometimes go the other way by being not as confident. If I was like, yeah, I'm going to go win that race, people are like, oh, you're a bit arrogant. Or they might not. But as in, I would probably think, oh, wow, okay, they're very like, sure they're going to do that. So they either have a lot of self-confidence, or they, are not as good as they think they are, which is funny now as I've got older, almost trying to then make myself more arrogant or confident or whatever it is, because you've taught yourself, or you've been brought up to not do that so often, that I wonder if there's a way that we should almost be, I just think it's interesting of whether we should almost be kind of trying to make ourselves think that confidence isn't such a bad thing, where it might negatively be in the past.
I think, again, we talked about optimism, we're talking about confidence. I think we just need to introduce a healthy dose of realism to it. So can I be realistically optimistic, or can I be realistically confident? And that is the temper for me, if you like. So it doesn't then verge on being, like I say, like I can be blindly optimistic, which isn't then a good trait. Yeah. Or I could be overconfident or arrogant, in terms of whatever your definition of that is, which may not be like conducive to what it is that I'm trying to do. So I'd look at those things as just like, okay, where do I add, like realistically, what do I know? This is where I think our understanding of the truth or the facts come into play.
Yeah.
And that helps to potentially just temper that going too far.
Yeah. Yeah, because as you're running along, you might actually be like, you are winning a race, or like you might not know. Like for as a woman, I think in a race, I'm not going for overall winner. I'd be going for first lady, for example. So you wouldn't necessarily know if you are first or not. So as I'm running along, if I'm like overtaking someone, because like say I do a lot of triathlon, like you wouldn't then see all the runners out on course because you're on a different course. And even if I'm like overtaking a woman, I wouldn't necessarily think like, oh, that means I'm going to get first. I'd still be thinking, oh, there's probably loads of other people ahead of me. So yeah, it's like balancing that of I could win this, and actually saying like, oh, I could go and, or I could do better than I thought I would, whatever that it is in your mind that you're thinking, that it's like getting that balance, isn't it?
Yeah. I don't know if any of you have seen the Andy Murray sheet that he used to carry around with him before each game and would read it. And he's got very much like controllable things on there, like try your best, be good to yourself, but then things try to be the one dominating, try to keep them at the baseline, move your legs. And it's very like controllable actions rather than I'm going to win this, because it's like, well, it's a game of tennis in that scenario. It's like, well, here's some controllable things I can do, some instructional self-talk as well as like the kind of conversational stuff. And I think that kind of comes back to that point as well. I think we can sort of jump into all or nothing thinking sometimes, or go, well, if I'm to this, it must mean I'm this. Or if I'm this, I must be this, without the kind of grey in between, the black and white as well. And I think we all worry of like, oh God, I don't want to be too arrogant or too this. And it's like, I think even just sometimes I think by thinking that, it probably means you won't be. Do you know what I mean? Because arrogant people aren't thinking around going, am I too arrogant? They just are. Like, it hasn't even crossed their mind. Or like, narcissists, am I too narcissistic? Like, they're not aware of it, are they? So I think even that catch in itself, that kind of, as you were saying earlier, that overprotective coach is like, just keeping you in line to go, actually, by me even thinking this, it probably doesn't mean I am it, but it's protecting myself of it as well.
Yeah,
I like the word try as well. Try is a better word than will or do. Like you're saying with Andy Murray there.
Yeah.
I was also been trying to think whilst you guys have been talking. I've been trying to think like, is that inner talk with confidence and arrogance? Is that just inner talk coming out? And you like let the gate open and it's being like, no, you are the best. Is that what it is?
Or you could keep it on your head.
And it should stay inside. Or like you were saying before, is it two parts where it's it's like, yes, you can do it. And then you still have that other inner talk saying, no, you can't do it. Is the inner talk that gate just telling the other side, yeah, you are the best? And the inner gate is going like, yeah, you are the best, but don't tell anybody. Like, do it well.
Well, it just leaks out sometimes.
Yeah. And that's maybe the arrogant people just don't have a gate.
Oh, I love that. I'm literally going to think of everyone having this gate in their head being like, oh, no, let that thought out. Oh, it slipped out. Oh.
You haven't got a gate.
Yeah, sometimes too much comes out. You're like, no, close the gate. Don't say that.
We are nearing the end of the episode. Before we wrap things up, I feel like we could talk about this stuff for hours. I'm going to ask you each to take a question at random and to answer it for yourself. So, Jess, you can have...
It's always make me
Jess,
worried, Chris.
you can have first pick and then pass it on.
Get nervous.
Take this one.
Thank you, mate. Oh, all right.
I'll give you a moment, and then what I want you to do, if you just read the question out, or if it's a fill in the blank, read it out and then give it an answer. Whoever's ready first.
Ready?
You go.
All right. Something that helps me manage my nerves before a tough run is I tend to try and think about exactly what's going on, to plan it, to know what's to come. So then you don't have those awkward moments where you didn't realise that 100k's are far. Like, I didn't do this on Sunday and I didn't look at the elevation. And I got to like 70k in or something and realised we'd done 1,000 metres and I was wondering why I was hurting. And like, I should have done that first, because that would have sorted my nerves out a bit, I think. But yeah, something that helps me manage my nerves before a tough run is to go into it a little bit more planned and know or kind of imagine how it's going to feel and plan that event or the run or whatever it might be.
Yeah, great.
But if you just turn up, you don't know what's going to happen, and then you just have to deal with it.
Yeah, that's what I went for.
I've got a little something there. Have you ever heard of the 5 senses exercise?
No.
It's a really nice exercise, actually. I can do it now if you want to give it a go.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, and obviously if you're watching along, you can give it a go. Have you heard it before, Chris? No. So if you just take a couple of deep breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth, or like normal breaths. And then just have a look around the room we're in and notice 5 things that you haven't paid attention to yet. It's not a quiz. You don't need to remember them. Obviously, you're watching along at home. You can do this in the environment you're in as long as you're not driving. And then close your eyes when you've got those 5 things. And now I want you to notice is 4 things that you can feel on your body somewhere. So it could be your clothing, glasses, what's in your hands, on your feet, but 4 distinct feelings. And when you've got those 4 things, give me a nod. Now, notice 3 things you can hear, 3 distinct sounds, and we are in a very quiet room, so you can count my voice as one of those 3 things, even if it's the sound of your own breath. And again, a nod when you got those. Now, 2 things you can smell. So feel free to have a smell of your hands or your clothing.
I'm not everything.
And a nod when you've got that. And then finally, 1 thing you can taste. If you describe the taste in your mouth to your mind, what that would be. And then open your eyes. How do you feel?
Pretty chill, man.
Yeah. I use that sometimes running, or I change the last one, obviously not close your eyes, like 1 thing you're grateful for example, but it's a nice way. It's a bit of like a neurological reset. Sometimes use it if I feel a bit overwhelmed on race day or like before it, just to, what you were saying earlier on, Chris, to bring yourself back to the,
just to direct your attention back to
the
you.
present of like, this is where I am. This is all I can control right now.
It's lovely.
Good.
Yeah. Chris, what's yours?
Mine. So comparison with others can play a big part in our self-talk. How do you use it positively to avoid it minimizing your own journey and success? So I think, again, that comparison piece is a common limiting belief. So personally, again, I don't think comparison is a bad thing, dependent on what you do with that. So I'd use that as data. So I wouldn't use it as seeing something that I feel that I need to imitate or that I need to take on. It's more if I'm looking at that and I see that how, or I'm curious as to how that might benefit me, then again, I try and employ it in that way. So I'm not trying to be something I'm not, but I'm trying to say, can I take something from there on board and fit it into me to potentially get some benefit from it. I think where it becomes difficult is, like you say, when we're literally comparing ourselves to others and saying, so I need to be this or I need to be that, and removing away from who we actually are and trying to be something that we're not. That's very short term. So again, I'm not saying I've mastered this by any stretch, by the way. Like all of this is a constant kind of exploration. But I think, again, an understanding as to what it is and what it could be allows me to then have a different relationship with it, as opposed to just falling into the trap that a lot of people do.
Yeah. Great. And Jess?
What's a knockback that felt difficult at the time, but now looking back played an important part in your life? I think I'm sure we can all have a lot of knockbacks. I'll go for like a running race, I think. So I think, often now I'll try and aim for a certain time, in like marathon, for example, is one that I put a lot of pressure on myself for, because it's a distance that kind of meant a lot when I started it, and I went into my first marathon, and then from then wanted to kind of get faster over time. I think there's like arbitrary numbers that a lot of us aim for that kind of, I don't know where they've even come from, and you want to aim for it. But almost in failing doing that, getting that time that I wanted has almost like helped me to then come back from that stronger, and it's kind of motivated me in my training, for example, or it's I guess taught me in lots of aspects that, you don't necessarily just get everything the first time. And I'm not saying I would have thought that anyway, but I think in running, you think if you put in the hard work, then you'll get that time. And there's so many aspects on the day that can change that, and so many variable factors that, I think runners probably get taken the mick out of like making excuses of being like, oh, I didn't get that time because of whatever and whatever. But it's more just about being kind to ourselves, and you don't necessarily have to think, oh, I missed my time by that much because the wind was too strong or whatever it is. It's more just being kind and noticing that your body changes so much, even just like day to day, that you can't guarantee any outcome. But it's not necessarily going to be about that race time or that race itself. It's more, you can look at that whole training block and think I've wasted it, or you can think, no, I had a great time. I met some new people on that run. I had a really nice deep chat with a friend. I challenged myself in ways that I wouldn't have otherwise. I've become more active or healthier. There's so many ways you can kind of then look at that in a positive light and think, well, it's not, that race is not actually important. It was the whole reason you did it was because you were willing to put all that effort in the first place. and that'll never be wasted. So I think that's kind of.
Yeah, I had someone say, I think, enjoy the training block, because you never know what's going to happen on race day. Like, go back to what you said earlier on, like, enjoy those tough runs rather than thinking I need to get to the end. You wouldn't climb a mountain and go, I just need to get to the top, or go on a bike ride and go, you turn around, wouldn't you, and appreciate the view. So, yeah, thank you all for joining me today. It's been, I feel like we could have 2 or 3 hours here, could do a Joe Rogan, couldn't we? But we don't have the time for that. But thank you all for coming on, and I really appreciate what you've shared as well from it. And yeah, I think, what we've discussed, self-talk, is something that is such a variable. And to what you were saying, Chris, I think, you said to yourself, like, I'm sitting here and I'm still working on this. It's not this fixed thing. It's not, like a lot of our emotions and feelings. It's something that we can constantly work on, and there are going to be all these thoughts that pop up because we are going to go through a variety of challenges. So I feel like today, thank you everyone for sharing your stories as well around it. I think I've learned a lot already from listening to them as well. So Jonty, Chris and Jess, thank you for joining me.
Thank you.